The series begins with a girl named Oiku, and we see her at school. She listens to her classmates talking about their parents. Then her teacher asks her to read the topic she wrote. Oiku talks about her aunt who raised her after the death of her mother and father. She praises her aunt, saying she takes care of her and pays attention to her. However, it turns out that this is not true, and that Oiku's aunt doesn't care about her at all. She also makes her do all the cooking, cleaning, and everything else. The teacher is impressed with Oiku's writing, and a classmate praises her, saying it was beautifully written. Oiku confesses the truth to him and asks him to keep the matter a secret between them. After leaving school, she meets the mother of her classmate, who asks her if her aunt still comes home late and tells her to call her if she needs anything. Oiku agrees, then walks alone and reaches the metro. It appears that Oiku knows all the stations and keeps reciting them in her mind until she arrives. She is shocked when she enters her house to find it empty and the furniture gone. She calls for her aunt, but no one responds. Then she finds a suitcase of her clothes with a letter from her aunt telling her she can't take responsibility for her anymore and asks her to go to her father. She informs her that his name is Demir and gives her his address. At the same time, Demir appears, running because people are chasing him. We learn that he is a swindler who steals paintings. When he returns home, he argues with Oor, his friend and partner. It turns out that Oor is the one who got him into this trouble by stealing a fake painting. Demir kicks him out of the house and tells him they won't work together again. However, the police arrive at that moment and arrest Demir alone. At the same time, Oiku arrives at the house. Oor sees her on his way to the lawyer and is shocked when she asks about Demir and tells him that she is his daughter. Oor tries to find out her mother's name from her, but fails. At that moment, he gets an idea to get Demir out of jail. He takes Oiku to the lawyer, then goes to the jail and tells Demir that he has a daughter and that she will be the reason for his release from jail because the judge will waive the penalty in exchange for him taking care of his daughter. Demir yells at him, saying he has no children. Then, immediately, we see him in court begging the judge to release him so he can take care of his daughter. Afterward, Oiku enters the court and the judge reassures her, telling her that they will provide her with a house to stay in if Demir turns out not to be her father. Oiku refuses, saying she wants to live with her father, and reads her aunt's letter to the judge. Sadness appears on Oiku as she reads it. The judge decides to release Demir from jail and postpone his punishment for the sake of his daughter. The lawyer warns him that he will return to jail immediately if he fails to take responsibility for Oiku, and the punishments will be enforced. Then, Ogur also leaves and walks away. Demir is annoyed and doesn't want to take responsibility for Oiku. He tells her that he hates children because they can't take responsibility for themselves and tells her that he is not her father. Oiku responds that she will return to the judge and tell him the truth because she doesn't like to lie. Demir gets scared and tells her he was just joking and asks her to take him to her aunt's house to verify for himself. Demir is surprised when he finds Oiku knows the way and can navigate to the house on her own. Oiku tries to open the door but fails because the lock has been changed. Demir learns that the house is now for rent and that Oiku's aunt has disappeared without a trace. He discovers that she was a fraudster. Oiku tells him that she had suspected her aunt because she never mingled with neighbors or went to school when summoned by the principal. Oiku gets hungry and tells Demir she wants to eat. They go to a restaurant, but it turns out Demir has no money. He asks Oiku to pretend to be sick and in pain so they can leave the restaurant without paying. Oiku refuses, not wanting to lie. Demir is frightened when she leaves him and stands in front of a woman in the restaurant who turns out to be named Seidan. Oiku tells Seidan she will read her fortune, a skill her aunt taught her. Seidan agrees and is very pleased with Oiku, giving her money. Oiku gives the money to Demir and asks him to pay the bill, telling him this will prevent him from scamming people, thereby avoiding jail, and she won't have to live in a shelter. In this way, she will always be by his side. At that moment, Seidan receives a call and learns she is a veterinary doctor. She rushes out to assist in delivering a cow. Oiku goes home with Demir and notices that it is very dirty, filled with insects. Elsewhere, we see Seidan delivering the cow, refusing to take money from the owner. Then she receives a call from the lawyer and is shocked to learn that her father has died. Jandan drops off Oiku and refuses to leave until she enters. Demir gets annoyed when he sees her coming in with the dog and takes it from her to put it outside, but he discovers it's injured, so he places a cushion in front of the house for the dog to sleep on. Oiku learns that her father plays poker with his friends, so she decides to join them and wins against all of them, having been taught by her aunt. Then she overhears Oor talking to Demir about the scheme and is shocked to see Jandan's picture, realizing they plan to swindle her. Deciding to warn Jandan the next day, Oiku wakes up feeling ill and wants to go out, but Demir discovers she's sick and tries to give her adult medicina, which she refuses. He then buys her proper medicine from a pharmacy pharmacy and makes her something to drink, but Oiku remains unwell. Demir decides to take her to the hospital, but she's scared and refuses, remembering a hospital visit with her aunt, where she overheard a doctor talking about her illness. Demir insists on taking her, but she refuses to get out of the car, so he takes her to Or's mother for treatment. Or fears Oiku might expose him in front of his mother, who thinks highly of him and is unaware that he sold her gold to scam people. Later, Demir puts Oiku to bed, and looking at her feels a resemblance. The next day, he takes her to school, but Oiku decides to visit Jandan, taking a taxi as she misses the bus. Meanwhile, Demir and Ohur, pretending to be art experts, visit Jandan and make her an offer for her paintings, pleased to find she's unaware of their true value and agrees to sell them. In a taxi stuck in traffic, Oiku decides to run to Jandan's house, arriving just as she's about to sign the papers, but gets there too late due to the door knocking. Demir is shocked when Oiku bursts in, telling Jandan she needs her for something important. Demir follows her, calling her his daughter, surprising Jandan, who doesn't understand what's happening. Demir threatens Oiku that he'll send her to an orphanage if she speaks out. Jandan learns that Oiku is his daughter and that she can't be separated from him. Or sells out, calling himself a thief and saying he was threatened to give the price he wanted. Jandan decides to call the police. Demir sees an opportunity, asks Or to hit him and escape quickly. Or does so, taking the papers and leaving. Oiku worries for her father and wakes him up, relieved when he does. Demir then warns Jandan not to call the police because Or is dangerous and could harm her. When they leave, Demir scolds Oiku for ruining the plan, getting angrier when she mentions he likes Jandan and should thank her for preventing him from scamming the woman he loves. She threatens to call the police if he scams her, so Demir angrily puts her in the car. Demir is shocked when he returns home to find his furniture on the street because the landlord has evicted him for not paying rent. Demir becomes more upset with Oiku and leaves her behind. Oiku is saddened and tries to follow him but can't keep up. Or reassures her, telling her that Demir often vents his frustration on trivial things and that he knows where Demir would go. Oiku is surprised to learn that Demir, like her, was an orphan raised in an orphanage. Or takes her to where Demir is staying. Oiku sits next to him, comforting him about the wound on his head. Demir tells her he can't take care of her and asks her to go to the orphanage. Oiku refuses, insisting on staying with him and expressing her willingness to be homeless together and stay anywhere. Demir then decides they should find a place to stay, and eventually he sets up a tent for them to sleep in, demonstrating his familiarity with street life. Meanwhile, Jandan is with someone named Murad, whom she has known since childhood but hasn't seen in a long time. Jandan goes out with him, sharing details of her new life. We see Demir cooking pasta, and Oiku disagrees with his cooking method, leading to an argument and spilled food. Oiku is hurt when Demir says her aunt was right to leave her, reminding her of the day she heard a doctor discuss her condition, a rare neurological disease requiring special care due to its seriousness. The weather turns rainy, forcing Oiku and Demir to seek shelter in their tent, which leaks, so they end up sleeping in the car. The next day, Oiku prepares for school but arrives looking disheveled and late, leading to her teacher requesting her father's presence due to her absences. Meanwhile, Jandan is at her sister's grave, mourning her death in an accident 10 years ago, for which Jandan still feels guilty, believing she was distracted by a phone call at the time. Oiku is hungry because she didn't receive any money from her father and hadn't eaten since the day before. A classmate offers her a sandwich and a carton of milk, which she refuses, saving them for her father. It's revealed that one of her classmates dislikes her, taking her paint box and throwing it away without Oiku noticing. At this time, Demir is with Owur, who has taken money from his mother, allowing them to order a lot of food. Demir eats until he is full, forgetting about Oiku, but feels touched when she returns from school and offers him a sandwich, insisting he eats it along with the milk. He agrees to eat for her sake, but ends up feeling very sick at night, vomiting all the food he had eaten. Oiku takes care of him and covers him up, but gets scared when he faints. She calls Jandan for help, just as Demir regains consciousness. He is shocked to learn that Jandan is on her way, who wants to take him to the hospital. Surprised by their living situation in a tent, Jandan offers them to stay at her place until they find somewhere to live. Oiku is delighted with the offer and agrees immediately, but Demir is reluctant to go until he recalls a conversation with Or about Gile talking a lot. He gets an idea and agrees to stay at Jandan's, thinking it would make it easier to steal the paintings. Demir is amazed when they arrive at the house, and he is shown into her father's room, filled with many artifacts. Oiku enjoys a bath and is very happy, asking Jandan to tell her a story before sleep. That night, she dreams of crying and calling for her aunt not to leave her. Hearing her, Jandan comforts Oiku, telling her she is there for her. However, Oiku insists on seeing her father to be reassured and is able to sleep after seeing him. The next day, Or contacts Demir and is shocked to find out that Demir is staying at Jandan's, believing this allows them to continue the operation they had failed before. Jandan prepares breakfast, and Demir pretends to be well-mannered in front of her, encouraging Oiku to eat slowly. He is surprised to see her drinking milk and realizes she had lied about not liking it just so he would drink it. Meanwhile, Owur is at a cafe and is shocked to see Jamal, who has just been released from prison. Jamal was a former accomplice of Demir and Owur's who had been imprisoned for a crime they had committed together and was sentenced to 10 years. Jamal asks Owur for Demir's location, but Owur lies, claiming he doesn't know anything and that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Jamal doesn't believe him and gives him a 12-hour deadline to disclose Demir's location. Back to Demir, who sees an opportunity to steal the paintings while Oiku is out with Jandan but is thwarted by the dog. He decides to take the dog out of the house, and at that moment, Owur calls him to inform him of Jamal's release from prison. Demir decides to leave the house to meet Jamal, despite Owur's warnings that Jamal would kill him if he saw him. Demir ignores the advice and confronts Jamal, who becomes agitated when Owur tries to speak and is silenced by Demir. Jamal reminds them of their past actions, how they abandoned him to be arrested by the police. Owur justifies it as part of their code, but Jamal demands repayment for the operation they involved him in, plus interest for the 8 years, giving them only a week to come up with the money. He threatens Demir with dire consequences if he fails to pay. Meanwhile, Oiku returns home and is relieved to see the paintings still in place. When Demir returns, Jandan talks to him about selling the paintings quickly. As they speak, Murad arrives, surprised to see Demir and Oiku at Jandan's place. Jandan explains they are staying temporarily. Murad, uncomfortable with the situation, insults Demir by offering him a job as a nurse in his hospital, implying he sees Demir as inferior. Demir, feeling demeaned, leaves with his daughter, prompting Jandan to ask Murad to leave. Demir and Oiku go back to their old tent, but Demir cannot sleep next to her, choosing to sleep in the car instead. Oiku, not wanting to be alone, joins him in the car. The next day, Owur contacts Demir, informing him that Jile wants to see them. Demir takes Oiku with him to potentially leave her with Owur's mother, but Owur refuses, fearing Oiku might reveal everything to his mother. They end up taking Oiku with them to meet Gillet, instructing her to wait outside. Gillet scolds them for messing up the deal, but Owur reassures him that Demir, now involved with Jandan, can steal the paintings. Oiku interrupts, needing to use the bathroom. Upon her return, Demir scolds her for not obeying him, leaving Oiku upset but unable to cry as Demir prevents it. The next day, Jandan calls Demir, who refuses to answer. Jandan finds herself in their tent, touched by Oiku's drawings, and goes out with her father to buy new art supplies, replacing those sabotaged by her classmate. Oiku is shocked to discover a file from a care home Demir plans to send her to, realizing her father plans to abandon her like her aunt did. She leaves him and sits in a park, where Jamal follows and watches her. Demir waits in the car, expecting her to return as usual, but when she doesn't, he searches for her at school and elsewhere, unable to find her. At this moment, Jandan accidentally finds a file under the couch, which turns out to be the same file Demir had. She's shocked to discover her photo inside it. Oiku goes to Jandan's but hesitates to knock, recalling Demir's words that Jandan isn't her sister or mother to care for her. When night falls, Demir goes to Jandan's house and is moved to find Oiku sleeping in front of the door. As Owur calls him, Oiku wakes up, sees him, and runs away, with Demir chasing after her. However, Jamal appears, knocking Demir to the ground and asking if Oiku is his daughter, hinting at revenge. Demir escapes and saves Oiku from being hit by a bus, but he is struck and falls to the ground. An ambulance takes both of them to the hospital. Upon seeing her father in a coma, Oiku breaks down but pretends not to care when Demir wakes up and inquires about her tears. The nurse then takes Oiku to her room, and Demir learns she is fine, which reassures him. Jandan visits the hospital, anxious about Oiku and Demir, and hints at needing to discuss the file she found, but decides to wait until Demir is better. Jandan also visits Oiku, who explains how her father saved her from a bus accident. Jandan assures her of her support during recovery, and Oiku is comforted to find Jandan still by her side when she wakes up. The doctor confirms Oiku is suffering from shock, but is otherwise in good condition. Jandan convinces Demir to return to her house. As she leaves the hospital, Owur arrives with Demir's favorite food, but is upset to learn Demir plans to leave the city and leave Oiku with Jandan, believing it's best for her. Owur becomes angry and urges Demir to steal the paintings quickly to resolve their issues with Jile and Jamal. Demir reassures him he will gather Jamal's money and send it to him. Dr. Asan discovers Oiku's rare disease from her test results, requesting a biopsy sample. Oiku, fearing her father learning of her illness, escapes the hospital. Jandan and Demir search for her, finding her hiding in their old tent. Oiku pleads not to be returned to the hospital. Jandan convinces them there's no need to go back as the doctor assured them of Oiku's well-being, and they return to Jandan's house. Oiku is upset to learn they won't stay permanently with Jandan. She studies at night, impressing Jandan with her memorization skills. Jandan tells Demir he's lucky to have such a daughter, envying their bond, which makes her believe Demir isn't the con man she thought he was. Demir attempts to steal the painting after Jandan and Oiku leave the house, but is stopped by Jandan's words and his conscience. Meanwhile, Dr. Asan discusses Oiku's rare disease at a conference, revealing its lethal nature by age 4. He orders his assistant to find Oiku. Jandan forgives Murad for his actions and agrees to give him another chance. Demir, feeling restless, decides to fix things around the house. Back at school, Oiku forgets her lesson mid-presentation, recalling the doctor mentioning memory loss as a symptom of her condition, and breaks down. Or convinces Demir to replace the original paintings with forgeries as part of their plan. Jandan returns home, causing Demir to panic and hide Or. They leave to pick up Oiku from school, who is noticeably upset and won't disclose why, remaining sad even while eating ice cream. Jandan tries to cheer up Oiku by offering to take her to the farm to see the newly born calf, which excites Oiku despite her lingering sadness. Meanwhile, Demir notices Jamal spying on them and urges Jandan to take Oiku back home. He confronts Jamal, denying having Jamal's money, but realizes Jamal knows everything about Jandan and her home. Jamal demands the sale of the paintings to repay his debt, threatening further actions. Oiku struggles with her studies back home due to her trembling hands, which prevent her from holding a pen, leading to a breakdown as she recalls subway stations to comfort herself. Gillette intimidates Or at his mother's house, demanding the paintings soon. Or, frightened, calls Demir, who reassures him of his plan. The next day, Oiku decides to escape from school, fearing mockery from her classmates over her memory loss. At the farm, Jandan treats an aggressive horse, which injures her. The farm owner takes her to a doctor. Meanwhile, Demir buys fake paintings to replace the originals. Oiku encounters Jamal, who claims to be an old friend of her father, and asks her to send him a message promising to repay Demir's debts. Oiku, scared, leaves him. Jandan returns home injured, and Demir and Oiku decide to take care of her. Demir helps her into her room and is flustered when she asks for her pajamas. The next day, Murad visits Jandan and insists on taking her to his private hospital. After they leave, Oiku asks her father if Murad is interested in Jandan, to which Demir agrees, showing his discomfort. They agree on disliking Murad. Oiku is happy when her father drops her off at school and gives her money, and she correctly recites multiplication tables, reassuring herself of her health. Demir meets Or to hand over the painting for Gilla. Demir then plans to leave Istanbul for Ankara. Or is pleased to deliver the painting to Gillet, but is shocked to discover it's a forgery. Gillet retaliates by having his men beat Our. When Demir returns home and tries to write a letter to Oiku but struggles, he is surprised to find Our beaten outside. They fight, and Our enters the house to steal the painting. Demir tries to stop him as Jandan arrives and witnesses the theft. Demir decides to abandon his friend just like he did before. In front of Jandan, he pretends that Or is a thief, trying to prevent him from stealing. He then asks Or to hit him and escape, but Or refuses, saying he won't run away again. Murad calls the police, who arrive and arrest Or. Oiku leaves school, finding no one at home, which distresses her. Demir is shocked after being released from the police station, not fully grasping what happened. He is further unsettled when Murad tells Jandan that Or's situation is dire, facing at least 10 years in prison. Jandan thanks Demir for his help. When they return home, they find Oiku waiting, surprised to learn about Or's arrest. Oiku enters her father's room to console him, saying he did nothing wrong by turning in his friend because she depends on him and nobody would care for her if he were imprisoned. Demir assures her he didn't steal anything. Oiku asks about Jamal, wondering if he's also a thief. Demir, worried, sternly tells her not to talk to strangers again. He then leaves to confront Jamal, beating him and warning him to stay away from his daughter. Oiku confides in Jandan that she only recently got to know her father, explaining her aunt abandoned her. Jandan reassures her about her father's good nature. Jandan recalls her estranged relationship with her own father following her sister's accident. Demir lies to Or's mother about her son's absence, claiming he's on a work mission without a known return date, and takes her number to keep in touch, returning home to find it locked. He chooses not to wake Jandan or Oiku, deciding to sleep in the garden instead. He has nightmares, shouting in his sleep about his friend escaping. Jandan wakes him up, and Demir awkwardly explains his overnight stay in the garden. At breakfast, he coaches Oiku on how to interact with strangers and defend herself, surprised when she bites his hand, proving she can take care of herself. Their car breaks down, and Oiku takes money from him to take a bus to school. Jandan learns that the farm owner sold the horse she cared for, leaving her devastated. Demir meets Gillet after receiving a message from him, agreeing to help find Oiku's aunt Zeynep in exchange for Gillet's assistance, planning to leave his daughter with her aunt and flee. Oiku convinces a classmate to skip school with her, observed by a classmate who dislikes her and decides to cause trouble for them. In the prison, Demir visits Owur, promising to save him and secure his release. Owur reveals he no longer desires to flee from Jamal or Gillet, finding a semblance of safety in prison. He asks Demir only to care for his mother. Demir leaves the prison saddened. Gillet then calls Demir, informing him of Zeynep's location. Meanwhile, Oiku worries about her father's absence and finds the house empty upon returning from school. Demir, following Gillet's lead, fails to find Zeynep at the given address but learns she's at her mother's house in exchange for his phone. Jandan teaches Oiku planting, during which Oiku inquires why Jandan isn't married despite her kindness. Jandan confesses to having wronged people she loved, but Oiku, seeing her as very kind for housing them, reassures her that everyone makes mistakes. Demir reaches Zeynep's mother's house, where he's told Zeynep has left. Desperate, he persuades her to reveal Zeynep's location, which turns out to be the airport. Demir confronts Zeynep there, learning she isn't Oiku's aunt, but was left with her in exchange for a large sum. Zeynep reveals she only saw Oiku's mother once and knows nothing of her whereabouts, shocking Demir with the news that Oiku's mother is still alive and was never interested in Oiku, leaving her without remorse. Questioned if Oiku is indeed his daughter, Zeynep responds evasively, questioning Demir's recognition of his child. Demir inquires why Zeynep abandoned Oiku, puzzled by Zeynep's question about Oiku not revealing the truth. Demir attempts to uncover the secret Oiku has kept hidden, but fails. Returning to Oiku, she gets into a fight with a classmate who tears her drawing. Recalling her father's advice, Oiku bites her classmate, leading to a visit to the principal's office. The principal attempts to contact Demir but fails. The bitten girl's mother argues with the principal and scolds Oiku. Demir, having achieved nothing in the city, lies to Gillet, claiming he couldn't find Zeynep and requests more time. Gillet's man is sent to Jandan's house to kidnap Demir, who overhears and decides to flee, spending the night on the streets. Oiku anxiously awaits his return. The next day, Demir tries to borrow money, preferring it to stealing, but fails. The principal summons Oiku, inquiring about her father. Oiku, unsure of his whereabouts, mentions staying with Jandan. Jandan is called to the school, finding Oiku upset over the school's decision to move her to a care facility, which Jandan fails to resolve. The principal warns that care authorities will take Oiku if her father doesn't reappear. Oiku tries to reassure Jandan, suggesting she could make friends in the care home, believing her father intended to send her there anyway. Demir, feeling like a failure, drinks with the homeless, blaming himself for the troubles caused to those around him, including his daughter. Jandan reaches out to Murad for help in adopting Oiku, unable to imagine life without her. Demir is shocked when Jamal informs him that the care home will take Oiku in the morning, revealing he knows everything about Jandan's house as his focus remains on selling the paintings to recover his money. A fight ensues, but Demir can't overpower Jamal, who leaves him unconscious, robbed by thieves. The next morning, as care authorities arrive to take Oiku, she breaks down, hugging Jandan. Demir, remembering Jamal's words, rushes home. Jandan implores him to retrieve Oiku. Demir races to stop the care vehicle. Oiku, tearfully questioning his whereabouts, is reassured by his presence. The care worker steps out, questioning Demir's identity, to which he affirms he's Oiku's father, leading to a heartfelt reunion. Oiku, shaking as she unpacks her clothes, tries to focus on something else. Her father, recalling Zeynep's words, questions if she's hiding something, but Oiku is confused and unable to respond. In prison, Or is intimidated by other inmates and is forced into servitude, highlighting his vulnerability. Demir consults a lawyer to find a way to free Or, which involves setting up a sting operation to catch Gillet in the act. Demir convinces Gillet of a fake heist involving a jewel-filled safe, leading to a police trap. Meanwhile, Jamal seeks out Asu, his old flame who betrayed him with Demir, in a nightclub. Asu admits she knew of Jamal's imprisonment, but never visited, and Jamal reveals he knows where to find Asu's daughter, Oiku, linking her to Demir. Asu drinks heavily, returning home to reminisce over a photo of her with Jamal and Demir, deepening the web of their interconnected pasts. The next day, Jandan enters Oiku's room to wake her up and is delighted to see Demir sleeping beside her. After waking up, Demir prepares Oiku for school. Jandan laughs at the braid Demir attempts on Oiku's hair, encouraging him that he'll learn in time. Demir drops Oiku off at school and again asks her if she's hiding something, but she remains confused by the question. Upon encountering Mart, her classmate, Demir becomes uneasy seeing them together and insists Oiku avoid talking to boys. Demir then visits Our's worried mother, reassuring her that Our will return soon. Meanwhile, Jandan is on her way to the lawyer when Jamal unexpectedly bumps into her, feigning an accidental collision. Jandan, startled, quickly leaves. She's shocked to learn from the lawyer that Murad is buying the house to help her. In prison, Demir and the lawyer try to persuade Our to testify against Gile for his release. Initially reluctant, fearing for his reputation, Our is eventually convinced by Demir's assurance of quitting their life of crime and agrees to the plan. Upon retrieving Oiku from school, Demir is upset to see Mart kissing her cheek. Oiku insists on waiting for Mart's mother, leading to a shared moment of gratitude and apology from her. Learning, Oiku kept secrets to avoid upsetting him. Demir is surprised. Returning home, they find Jandan and Murad, announcing Murad as the new house owner. Irritated, Demir hastily decides they will move to the new house he claimed to have found, insisting Oiku pack immediately. Jandan tries to intervene without success. Encountering Jamal on their way, Demir fears for Oiku's safety and confronts Jamal, declaring he has nothing left to give. Offering himself up, Demir dares Jamal to end his life, which Jamal doesn't act upon. They leave unharmed. Jamal then forces his way into Asu's house, demanding answers to his previous question about Oiku's paternity, which Asu refuses to address, claiming she's too busy to talk. Oiku is surprised when her father takes her to a pension, revealing he had lied to her. This revelation leads to a conflict, with Oiku accusing Demir of being a liar. Distressed, Demir reminds her of her mother and aunt who left her, suggesting they weren't seen as liars, only him. Oiku breaks down, explaining her mother left because she died, then locks herself in the bathroom to cry. Feeling guilty, Demir apologizes, but she remains upset despite eventually emerging from the bathroom. Demir explains his actions, saying he didn't want to stay in the house after Murad bought it and lied to prevent Jandan from stopping them from leaving. Oiku believes him and asks for a promise not to lie again, which Demir gives, moved by her sleeping in his arms. The next day, Demir wakes to news from the lawyer that Our has been released from prison. He rushes to meet him, and despite initial reluctance, Our reconciles with Demir, touched by the sacrifice of selling the car to free him. Meanwhile, Jandan moves to a new clinic and encounters Jamal, who has moved into the same building as part of his revenge plan. Our returns to his delighted mother, and Demir is moved by their reunion, feeling the warmth of family he never had. Later, Demir learns Our met Zeynep and shares the details of their encounter. They then try to identify Oiku's mother by recalling the women Demir knew in 2009 and 2010, awkwardly remembering his relationship with Asu. At the same time, Asu reflects on her feelings about her pregnancy and her fears for her daughter. Jamal meets a wealthy acquaintance from prison, grateful for Jamal saving his life, and agrees to provide him with whatever money he needs. The next day, Our takes Oiku to school, allowing Demir to meet the women from his past. Our is smitten with the woman he meets, deciding he will take Oiku to school from now on. During his quest, Demir meets one of his past acquaintances, but quickly realizes she couldn't be Oiku's mother, as her eldest child was born in 2010. Moving on without responding to Jandan's calls, Demir encounters another woman from his past, now unrecognizable due to numerous cosmetic surgeries. He rules her out as Oiku's mother, since she was undergoing cosmetic surgery the year Oiku would have been conceived. Upon returning from school, Oiku finds Jandan trying to reach her father. She eagerly answers, expressing how much she misses her. Jandan inquires about their address to visit, but Demir, overhearing, instructs Oiku not to share it and abruptly ends the call. Frustrated, he reprimands Oiku, emphasizing she should obey him as her father. Determined, Jandan plans to visit the school the next day to see Oiku. Simultaneously, Asu visits Jamal's home, ready to answer his question. Amidst these developments, Demir confronts Oiku, revealing he met her aunt and presses her about the secret she's been keeping from him. This intense moment marks the end of the first part of the series.